The subject of this video is wooden boxes, and more specifically, an alternative to hinges for wooden boxes. Here's my recently completed file box. Looks pretty ordinary, except for the hinge mechanism. Something I've been using on boxes for many years. Means that when the lid of such a box is open, it's tucked in neatly behind the box, doesn't hang on the hinge, doesn't need a chain or a brace to limit its travel. Not ideal for every kind of a box, but certainly for a box like a file box, and some of the other examples I'm going to show you, it works pretty well. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made this particular box, and then also show you some of the other examples that I've made over the years with this type of hinge. I'm going to make a box with 12-inch high sides, and I'm going to finger joint the corners. A little bit about my finger joint jig. It borrows heavily on a design from a video published on YouTube by Ed Stiles. A very good video. And he also published free plans. And I took most of the dimensions for the finger joint jig from his plan. A 1/2-inch dado blade set installed, precisely 1/2 inch. And I've installed one set of boards against the stop, and I've got the second set of boards offset exactly half an inch from the first set. So I set the blade height just a hair above the thickness of the boards that I'm working with. I planed them down to 5/8 of an inch. My jig uses 16 thread per inch 3/8 rod, so I've got to advance it 16 turns for the 1 inch for the next notch. 1, 2, 14, 15, 16. And another one. Well, we could put the boards directly back in and do the other, but I'm anxious to see what kind of a fit we get. A little loose, which is okay because it'll leave room for glue, but the actual overall, it's worked out exactly right with 12-inch boards, equally spaced, and it'll clamp into place very nicely. I'm going to go ahead and make the other dado cuts. I've lined them up with the notch in my sled, exactly 1/2 inch. Okay, I've dry fit everything together because I want to establish the dimensions for the top, the outside dimensions, the final outside dimensions for the top and bottom pieces. So I'm just going to use some scraps, thin scraps here. Okay, we have length. And width. Okay, time for glue. I'm just going to glue one end at a time because I don't have any white glue. White glue would give a little longer set time and might be preferable for a job like this. But I just have yellow glue, so I'm going to apply a little glue to the bottom of the grooves and to the sides of each finger. Okay, the two joints that I glued earlier are dry, so I've just clamped them in a couple of bar clamps so that these two, the front and back pieces of the box won't spread, because I'm going to slide in the bottom and the top into these pre-cut grooves. Not using any glue because I'm sure that this soft wood is going to move with changes in humidity. Okay, I'm just going to brush some glue into the grooves, into the fingers, and close in the box. Right way. I'm sure some of you noticed that the dado grooves that I cut for the top and bottom left exposed holes on the sides and ends of the box. So I've just whittled some plugs for each of the 16 little holes that I hope will disguise them. So anyway, having that done, it's off to the belt sander to clean up the external surfaces and the corners. Well, just a few minutes with a finishing sander. I'm using 100 grit to start with, and then a final sanding with 150 grit with the orbital sander. A few minutes, and we should be ready to take the top off the box. Finally ready to separate the top. Okay, to design the linkages that hold the lid, what I normally do is make a sketch on some taped together pieces of paper. Outline the box. outline the lid. So then we have the lid in the closed position, and then I'll also outline the lid about where I want it to be in the open position, tucked in at the back of the box. From my drawing, this represents the box, and this will represent the lid in the closed position, and this will represent the lid in the desired open position. So I've made up a couple of links. I know from experience we'll need a short link to carry the back of the lid down to the lower position behind the box. And I know we're going to need a little bit longer link to carry the top, or the front of the lid, to the top position at the back. So this arc and this arc intersect at this point, so that would make a good point to anchor the rear link and use the length between the shorter hole in this temporary link, and do the same sort of thing with the longer link. And with the link in the open position, I didn't quite meet, so we'll take another reading. Now, I think if we use the longer hole in this link, and that the arcs intersect at this point, we have a point at which we can mount the longer link on the box, the shorter link on the box, and the length of the final length of the link to be used. Okay, I hope that makes some sense. Okay, I made up a couple of links with the lengths that I arrived at from my sketch. But I've got a problem. The lid doesn't clear the back corner here. I'm not sure if you can see it clearly, but it's not going to work. Okay, I tried lengthening this front link. It made it even worse. So I've tried shortening it. I've drilled holes to essentially make the link shorter, and now I'm happy with the way it works. The lid and the box just clear, and the lid tucks in nicely in its open position. So I'm going to use these dimensions then to make the links for the file box. I've made up some links by gluing 1/8 inch juniper to 1/8 inch plywood. The juniper is very soft, weak wood, and wouldn't do to make links out of, but I wanted the decorative effect. And I've transferred from my sample the hinge points that I arrived at from this trial and error process to the box, and I've tapped in some finishing nails so I can have one last dry run before I put in screws. Links on both sides. And everything seems to work pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and put in screws into each of the links into the box. And I've also made up a carrying handle. I'm not entirely happy with it. A strap piece of Purple Heart, and I tried to stain it to match the Purple Heart but I think it'll do as, from a functional standpoint, I'm not just 100% happy with the appearance. And then finally we'll get on with oiling and finishing it. I've glued a wood strip on the inside of each side of the box, a 5/16 by 3/4 inch wood strip, and I'm going to screw a piece of metal perforated strapping on each side so the edge is slightly raised above the wood strip, and that'll provide a support for the pendant file folders. This is a cabinet I threw together for some of my automotive test equipment. Cabinet with a minimum footprint. Houses a battery charger, home-built electric motor alternator, a battery tester, a battery load tester, and a tacked well meter in a cabinet with hinges, a little different variation on the hinges I used on my file cabinet. Here, instead of the lid folding down behind, I fold the lid underneath, and it holds the tester at a nice angle for viewing, whether in the cabinet or on a bench top. One other little cabinet I have, or box that I have here, is what I call a battery toolkit, and it has the same type of hinges. If you looked at my video a few months back on my mechanics tool chest, you'll see another example of this linkage lid. I hid the linkages on the inside, so I have two links that support the lid and allow it to open and tuck down behind. Then I have a third set of linkages that carry this upper wrench tray. Here's just a few other boxes that I've made where the lid is supported by linkages. I made quite a nice box for our antique stereo Viewmaster and all of the reels. Another box with hooks instead of a latch, plywood links, a storage box for a really antique, large size slide projector. And another box with aluminum links supporting the lid. Well, that will pretty well wrap up my video on wooden boxes with linkage supported lids. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and thanks to every one of you who's forwarded information on my channel to other people. Thank you for now.